You collected numerous devices, but you collected an active phone that he had. What did you find on that phone?
Well, the phone, it just provided us and matched up everything that we mostly already had. You know, we'd already conducted search warrants and had a lot of his activity, a lot of his phone usage. When we actually had the physical phone and we were able to do the extract of it, you know, we didn't gain a lot from it. You know, we know that he was clearing a lot of his devices and wiping things from them. We know that he used VPNs. So, but we also did find screenshots and pictures of news coverage of Moscow.
On the case?
Correct.
That's so classic.
Right.
It has been said that there were pictures on his phone of groups of young people in Moscow, and that Maddie, possibly Kaylee, were in some of those photos. Is there any truth to that?
No truth at all. There was not, to this date, we have never found a single connection, anything, between any of the 4 victims or the other 2 surviving roommates with him. No pictures, no texts, no. There was rumor, speculation that he was following some of them on different social media sites. There was sites that were sent to us of, hey, this is him, he's following. They were either untrue or they were sites that people made that were completely fake. And so we had to research and go into every single one of those just to prove or debunk what somebody had made up. And of course then that spread to the media and it went wild that he was following or there was a connection, and there wasn't. We wanted that, you know. I think naturally we need that, you know. What's the connection? What's the why? And we have found zero, never any connection.
I saw the amount of search warrants that you applied for and got returns on, and I don't think we saw the returns, but the work you were doing was monumental going through everything, and I saw that in the documents. You know, back at the house, we have now learned, because documents that have not been public have now been made public, and Xana Kernodle found on the floor over 50 stab wounds, many of them, much of them defensive. Can you explain that? Put that into layman's terms, the wounds and the defensive aspect of them.
She fought back, and she fought hard. And that's unless Darren can expand on that, that's primarily the reason.
Yeah, that was. Xana absolutely fought. And we know that Xana was up. We know that Xana had just gotten her DoorDash shortly before this and was actively up. And so, yeah, she did. She fought.
So as she fought back, he kept stabbing?
The fight just continued, yes.
Kaylee, in the documents that just became public, there was a preliminary autopsy report that said she was stabbed over 20 times. Mr. Gonsalves said, and we haven't seen the final autopsy, but he has said she was stabbed, Kaylee, over 30 times. Do you know the amount of times she was stabbed?
We do. We know the exact amount of times that every one of them was stabbed. And it's not something that we would speak about for the privacy of the families. But I can tell you we've met with families, and his information that he has is very accurate.
Well, we know because of the public documents her face was unrecognizable. And then the concept of, okay, a second weapon. Where do you stand on that to set the record straight?
Yeah, we believe that there was one primary weapon. The same knife was used to kill all 4. As has been reported, and I think the family has spoke to this, Kaylee was struck in the face, and we don't know what caused the marks that were left by it. It wasn't fatal. and we just don't know what caused that. And we've never located, obviously, the knife that we know did kill all four, and we don't know what was used to do that.
Now, a fist can be a deadly weapon.
Right.
The injuries to the face, could that have simply been from a hand on her face?
No.
So you believe the injuries to her face came from something other than his fist?
Yes, I think the fist could have been part of it, but it certainly appears something else struck her to cause the marks that we saw that is not consistent with a fist.
What about marks near her mouth that came out? I believe they came out in public documents. Bound?
Yep.
Gagged?
And those are what I'm referencing, and no, it doesn't appear, there was no evidence that she was bound or gagged.
Are the marks from a knife?
No. No.
So the reality is the extent of what was done to her may be a mystery forever.
Yeah, it may be.
We saw publicly, it came out in legal filings, the selfie taken just hours after this all happened. He has a thumbs up. How do you interpret that picture?
That's hard to answer without putting my own opinion into it. You know, this individual, there's a lot of strange things about him and his demeanor and his way his brain works. So to say what I think that was would be pure speculation.
What about law enforcement theory? Because his thumb is up, right? His thumb is up. So that denotes...
Right, but the reality was we have many, many other pictures of him, selfies, where he has a very similar pose. It wasn't just one unique that was only that way. That's probably the one that's circulated the most now. And I think you can make lots of speculation because of the timing, but the reality was there's other pictures where he has that similar pose.
Excellent point to put it in perspective. Thank you for that. Do you believe that he committed other murders before November 13th, 2022?
We don't. We don't have any evidence. We don't have anything that's ever been located or found. We certainly, by we, I mean the FBI, the Pennsylvania State Police, every law enforcement agency that would have been anywhere that he's ever been has taken a hard look into that, because that's certainly one of the first things you wonder. Has this occurred before? And there's nothing to support or show that he's ever done this before, and we don't believe that he ever had done it before.
So this would have been his first.
Yes.
Obviously, you believe he would have gone on to do this again?
I don't know. It's a great question. I don't know.
I was talking with a district attorney in California that said to me, Gene, he's a serial killer. And I guess by definition, because serial killer is 3 or more in that area, do you consider him a serial killer, even though it's one episode?
No, I don't. It's not a term we've used at all, but I would tell you we've just not looked at that or thought about that. We were obviously consumed by the investigation and the murders here, so I would certainly leave that to the experts. And
I just call him what he is. It's a murderer.
Quadruple murder.
Quadruple murder, yeah. And he will now die in prison for doing that.
So you've studied this for 2.5 years. You were just on the eve before trial. It's complicated. What is your working theory as law enforcement investigators on why he did what he did?
It's the That's the biggest question. And it's the same question we've had, and we've had it all along. But the reality is often we don't get the answers to the why. And I think even in some instances, and I think this certainly could be one of those, the why from him may make no sense at all to us and not even be explainable or understandable. So we don't have a motive. We don't have anything that has said, here's why, or here's the reason. We just don't have that.
Well, he used a knife, multiple stabbings. In law enforcement, what does it denote when you have a deadly weapon that is a knife?
I would say, typically, if you look back historically, a lot of crimes that are committed with knives are a little more personal. But again, that's also speculation. As Lieutenant Gilbertson said, we all would like to understand and make some sort of sense of why in this situation, but that's just something that I don't think we're ever going to know.
What are your thoughts about when he was in graduate school in Pennsylvania? He had a project, and he developed a questionnaire sending to convicted murderers around the country what their state of mind was before they committed the murder, during the time they were committing the murder, and after they committed the murder. What does that tell you about his state of mind in doing a project like that?
Yeah, I think he's very consumed with it. And I would tell you, we looked into all of that. We obviously have everything that he studied, every project, every course that he's been in during all of his higher education, to include at WSU. And at the same time, though, anybody else that's in those fields, they're doing the similar things, the similar type projects. So none of those were a one-off to only him. We could find many, many, many other students that were also doing the same or very similar. It's hard to not look at it and view that as part of the overall, is that part of the why? Is that part of why he did this? And again, but it's just speculation and assumptions.
But I think you said something very valuable, consumed by it.
Right.
Because objectively speaking, when you look at everything, I think that is a reasonable conclusion, consumed. I wanted to ask you, the president of Donald Trump cares about the victims in this case, and he has spoken out twice now about the families, the victims. Has he contacted anyone in Idaho at all that you know of about this case and his concern?
No, not that I'm aware of.
No, not that I'm aware of. And yeah, somebody said that he had commented something the other day, and I thought they were joking, but apparently he did.
Mm-hmm.
But no, nothing that we know personally.
Right. Do you know at all if the Department of Justice has reached out for any of your files? Because he did travel from Washington to Idaho to commit the murders. He ordered the knife on Amazon through interstate commerce. He did allegedly stalk the home. That was a working theory, right, for months before. There are federal crimes in that area. Has there been any communication? It's only been a few days, but...
Not for the Department of Justice, other than through the FBI, who's been a fantastic partner with us the entire time. They literally opened anything that we needed, and it was a phenomenal resource, and we could not thank them enough for all of their efforts.
I saw that, and I'm sure the partnership was so tremendously valuable. When they started the investigative genetic genealogy, which really is at the forefront of stopping crimes from continuing to happen, they were fast on that. They got you that name. What was that like when you did get that name?
Well, it was, I'll let Darren take that one, but...
Yeah, it was incredible. Mm-hmm. We received a call that evening from them, and they told us that they had some information for us and said that they had a name and provided the name, and I think we were all in disbelief, you know, because you've worked so hard and went through so much to that point, and then to just like that have a name. So yeah, it felt surreal, and disbelief and all those emotions, but you know, that's only very quick and momentarily, because then we have a name, so then we start a whole new bit of work, and we start diving into this name and who he is. And so there was just never much time to really think about anything, because we were just consistently moving on. So
Genetic genealogy as that investigative tool, that tip, do you find it indispensable in today's day and age?
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Both, you know, with the Idaho State Police, we have a contract with Othram Laboratories in Texas, and the work that they do, it's incredible. You know, they're solving crimes that are 40, 50 years old, that we would never have any closure or be able to solve those. And so that and the FBI is doing the same, and it's unbelievable. It's a phenomenal tool.
Are the students here in Moscow, are they safe now?
Yes, our community is safe.
Do you have any concern of copycat artists or anything that could, as the judge say, want their 15 minutes of fame?
We at the Moscow Police Department, and so did Lieutenant Gilbertson when he joined the Idaho State Police, we swore an oath to protect our communities from any and all threats. And so, you know, although this case will always be a part of our history, and quite frankly, one that I'm proud of the work that we did, it doesn't change the fact that we continue to do the same job that we signed up to do, and that is day in, day out, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We have officers out there doing the work, keeping the community safe.